morning, everyone, and welcome into Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about a couple news stories, and then take a look at some cap situations from around the league and identify the players that might get moved, whether it be by release or by trade post June 1st. There's some money that could be saved by a few teams, so we'll be talking about that. Go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. All right, so welcome in, everyone. Glad to see all your beautiful faces this morning in the chat on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, listening on the podcast. You're awesome. Thank you for tuning in. Good morning, Scrap Iron. Good morning, Jeremy. And good morning, Mr. Perfect. Good morning to you guys. Let's go ahead and get going. We've got a few news stories before we get into the cut candidates. We're going to start with Justin Fields. Not much to talk about here. It's just, we're in the middle of the off season here, so we're just going to hear a bunch of different rumors and all that kind of fun stuff. When it comes around Justin Fields, Russell Wilson yesterday came out and said that he basically strikes fear in defenses. Wilson said, Justin is obviously one of the most talented guys in the NFL. You know all the things he can do. The player, the quarterback, he's dynamic. And I think it would strike some fear in defenses if they did a little bit of a 2-quarterback system. That Justin Fields apparently talked about playing the Cordell Stewart type slash role for the Steelers this season. And yeah, that's really it. I guess so they're discussing multiple ways to be using Justin Fields next season on the Steelers. It again sounds like Russell Wilson, of course, has the starting role for week 1. And then, of course, if Justin Fields is to take over, it would have to be later in the season. But it sounds like he might even have himself a little bit of a role in the season, just by the Cordell Stewart slash type role. He just came in before, Cordell Stewart ended up becoming the starting quarterback. But really, he just kind of came in and did whatever he was asked. It was just a dynamic player, and that could be Justin Fields here as well. So anyway, sounds pretty interesting. Thought it was a fun little story to discuss. Both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields seem content with running 2 quarterbacks as much as possible. And Justin Fields could be out there, maybe like a Taysom Hill plus even for this Steelers team. So keep your eye on that. And still, hopefully Justin Fields takes over the actual quarterback role at some point in the season. I just want to see the fireworks from that. The next bit of news we have is the Bears. The Bears have been selected as this year's Hard Knocks team, so stay tuned for that. Again, not much to really say. They are the Hard Knocks team. Pretty excited. Very cool to be able to watch Caleb Williams through his first offseason as an NFL player. Of course, Roma Odunze is thrown in there as well. Then we, of course, get to see Keenan Allen. He's fun. DJ Moore, lots of players that we're excited to see here. A good team to pick for Hard Knocks, and probably going to make HBO a ton of money picking this, ascending Bears team. Some other hype coming out revolves around Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims yesterday was practicing, and Sean Payton said this about him. And I'll just start from the article, too. There's a little bit of a paragraph previewing what Sean Payton said. With Judy gone and Courtland Sutton not attending voluntary offseason workouts as he seeks a contract adjustment, Mims has had a chance to show off his potential in Sean Payton's offense. Sean Payton said, I've said this and I'll say it again. We are as much responsible for holding him back, or we were responsible essentially for holding him back. I think we'll see a lot of growth from year 1 to year 2. He's tough, and he had a really good play today. We know he's a good returner, and we felt that was one of his strengths that we saw on tape. We saw transitional speed. We saw the things you need to have at the receiver position. So I don't think it was his development as much, and I don't want to say a crowded room, but just trying to create enough touches for Judy and Sutton. Now we have a room and a lot of young players. Size is certainly something you see at the receiver position right now. I'm anxious as we go through this process to watch these guys. This first half of the OTAs has gone really well. I told them that. I like the energy. I feel like we're younger, and you feel that at practice. So it sounds like Marvin Mims is impressing Sean Payton a little bit at camp right now. Sounds like also there's some potential that he has a bigger role than we're even giving him credit for. A lot of us are talking about, him being the wide receiver behind Courtland Sutton and maybe ahead of Troy Franklin. But there's a potential here that Courtland Sutton is not on the Denver Broncos by the time the season rolls around, with him not at camps, trying to seek a contract adjustment. And as we'll talk about, being a potential June 1st cut or trade candidate. So that is the Marvin Mims situation. Again, a player that I have been recommending to take some dart throws on him and Troy Franklin. I think both of those wide receivers right now are a value. I really do think that Bo Nix is not going to bust here on this Broncos team. I think that was a solid fit for him. And I do think that he'll be able to run this offense pretty well, at least decently, right? At least enough for fantasy football purposes. Who knows how that'll translate to wins and stuff, but I do see like yards and touchdowns being scored by this offense. And a lot of it's probably going to come from Mims and Troy Franklin. So that's that. Also on the Broncos, I actually just remembered this, didn't even put it in my show sheet, but I saw yesterday Audric Estime had a scope done on his knee. Sean Payton did come out and say that he is expected to be full go for the actual training camp, but will be missing the rest of these voluntary workouts with the team. So there's another opportunity now for Blake Watson and the rest of the running back room to make a name for themselves at these OTAs with Audric Estime out. And the last bit of news we have for you guys revolves on the opposite end of the Jalen Waddle contract extension. Yesterday, the contract extension for Jalen Waddle happened live on the show. We talked about it a little bit. Of course, Jalen Waddle deserves it. He's had over 1,000 yards in 3 straight seasons. A great profile. The first-round draft capital has remained relatively healthy and will profile similarly to Tyreek Hill if they ever do move on from Tyreek Hill. Well, now reports have come out after this that Tyreek Hill has actually been searching for a contract extension since the conclusion of last year, where he had basically a career season, 1,700 receiving yards, tons of touchdowns, and was on pace for 2,000 before picking up an injury towards the end of the year. He has been searching for more money because honestly, his contract situation is not great. He's 30 years old. We keep talking about this. He's 30 years old. And again, I say he's a sell in Dynasty. You don't need him. You can get other win now receivers for him with massive cherries on top. He is just valued so highly right now. He is scheduled to make $31 million in base salary this season. The concern here is that the Dolphins do have an out on his contract after this season going into 2025. And the reason they might take that is because he's scheduled to make $34 million base salary in 25. And in 2026, if they do not take this out, if they are to finish out his contract, he is scheduled to make $56 million base salary. So Tyreek Hill is seeing that, and of course signed this contract originally thinking he would get it all. But it is possible now that he's not going to get it all, not get $56 million base salary in 2026. Just an absolutely insane amount of money for one season. And that's probably why the Dolphins backloaded it. That would be his 32-year-old season. There's no way the Dolphins actually want to pay him that. So Tyreek Hill is either A, going to try to restructure this damn thing, or just get a new contract as a whole. But either way, they're reported, he's not very happy with the current money he's making, even if he's scheduled to make $30 million. Could you imagine making $30 million for 1 year of work? It's so much money. But either way, that's the situation here with Tyreek Hill. Definitely something to keep your eye on throughout the offseason. Not sure if the Dolphins are really going to be able to meet him halfway, just because they also still have to extend Tua here pretty shortly. So there's not that much money to go around after now extending Jalen Waddle. So we'll see how this develops. But Tyreek Hill is currently not very happy with the money he's making under his contract and is perhaps a bit worried that he's not going to be able to actually finish it out as much as he wants to, just because it's so backloaded. I don't think the Dolphins want to pay him $56 million in base salary in 2026. Just insane, an enormous amount of money. So that is all the news I have for you right now. We could go ahead and hop into June 1st cut candidates. But before we do that, why don't we hear a little bit about the FFPC?
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and Dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
Go sign up for the FFPC today. Fun stuff going on. And also just go ahead and shout out the FFPC Last night was the hard way draft, which is a draft where you don't have a draft board. You're not allowed to have computers or anything like that. Like, it is all up here. I believe you can write down pencil and paper and all that stuff, but our very own Theo Greminger was out there. Dan Williamson was out there. Bradley Stalder was drafting, and Mike Schaub from the deep end was also drafting in this yesterday. So I recommend go and check that out. Very, very interesting type of draft with some very sharp analysts over at the FFPC. Great stuff going on there. So we are here. It is May 31st. Tomorrow will be June 1st. Sunday will be June 2nd. Monday will be June 3rd. Tuesday is going to be June 4th, believe it or not. You know, it'll keep on going day after day. But what that means is essentially the NFL has their contract situation structured in such a way to where something with the way the season's set up and everything, to where if you cut a player before June 1st, generally there are some more penalties that you have to incur than if you were to just wait till after June 1st. So generally, this is kind of a day where teams already release players and say, hey, we're designating them as a post June 1st cut so we can free up some money, but we're going to go ahead and do it. But there's also some players that they keep under wraps to, try to affect the market. You could also trade these players and save some money post June 1st. Lots of different things. So we've got a few players here. I went team by team to see what players they could save some money from, or even just some players that they should just cut in general, go ahead and cut bait. And of course, cross-referenced a few lists as well around the industry to see, just what some other ideas are. So I think we have a pretty firm list here. And I would assume at least one of these players is going to get cut or traded or moved or something. There's that. Anyway, we'll go ahead and talk about it. Today's show shaping up to be a short one. I'm not going to get super in depth here, but I wanted to put the names in your guys' head. Miles Sanders is going to be the first one. Of course, this is Carolina Panthers running back Miles Sanders, who is scheduled, to make a ton of money. He signed a massive contract with the Carolina Panthers just a couple seasons ago. It might have been going into last year, and just did nothing. Just did absolutely nothing. Lost the job to Chuba Hubbard, and is now just kind of buried on the depth chart, as they have also now brought in Jonathan Brooks via the draft. Instead of keeping him on the contract and having to pay him $5 million base salary in 25, $4 million base salary in 2026, they can cut Miles Sanders right now, well, tomorrow, post June, so I guess maybe June 2nd. I don't know if it's like a timing thing, like if you do it on June 1st, it's fine. But either way, post June 1st cut for Miles Sanders, they could save $200,000. Now, compared to the rest of the players that we're going to be talking about here, that sounds like nothing. But that is why I brought up how much money they would have to pay him the next couple seasons if they don't do that. There is no out on his contract. They would have to release him at some point if they want to get out from under it. So to go ahead and just bite the bullet, release him post June 1st, free up $200,000 so as they don't have to pay the millions of dollars in the next couple seasons. I think it's pretty smart. There's no guarantees on the next 2 seasons of his contract. So releasing him, it's not really going to incur too much. They can just cut him, free up a couple $100K, and get out from under that Miles Sanders contract. I do pretty much expect that to happen, which could make some waves for the free agent running back market. Not that Miles Sanders is good, but I mean, he's probably better than Dalvin Cook is at this point in his career. Could go somewhere and mess up a backfield. So just keep your eye on that. The next area is the San Francisco 49ers. So there's some more kind of developments here on the Ayuk Deebo Samuel situation. They're not going to release either one of them, but trading either Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel would save money for the San Francisco 49ers. Either one of them. With trading post June 1st, Brandon Ayuk, they would save $14 million. If they traded Deebo Samuel, they would save $22 million post June 1st. However, the important thing to note here, as talked about yesterday, Brandon Ayuk is a much easier asset to trade away. He's younger. He has a little bit better production as a true wide receiver. He's not under a long-term contract, and he's not present with the team right now. So again, I still expect Brandon Ayuk probably to be the one moved between the two. But trading away Deebo Samuel does technically free up some more money. And if they want to move away from that type of player, like if they just want pure wide receivers to go with Brock Purdy and not a yak guy like Deebo Samuel, they could trade away him. The only thing is he is under contract for a few more seasons, and part of trading and trade value in general is the contract situation. I don't think many teams are going to want to take on Deebo Samuel's contract unless they're going to do a Stephon Diggs type of thing. But again, I say Deebo Samuel is present with the team right now. He said he's fine. He has no more drama anymore. That was 2 years ago now that he was requesting all the trades and stuff. And so I think it's, again, I don't really see the world where Deebo Samuel is moved. I still personally think it would be Brandon Ayuk, given, again, he's younger, has the production, doesn't have the long-term contract. They could probably get a bit more trade value for him. And plus, again, I don't understand why they would draft Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing if they wanted to move on from Deebo Samuel and not just draft Malachi Corley in this draft. I don't get it. So that's, again, why I just expect it to be Ayuk, freeing up $14 million for a player that isn't present, and you could probably also get like a first-round pick next year for, because of how good he's been and how young he still is, and the fact that the contract would go, the next team would kind of be able to choose what to do with the contract. I would expect Brandon Ayuk to get moved here, if any of them are. But again, the 49ers aren't under the cap at all. They're good. They are over the cap. Sorry. They are under the cap. They have cap space right now. It's not like, in fact, there are no teams that are desperate right now. Every single team has cap space right now. So it's not that big of a deal. But again, $14 million to trade Brandon Ayuk post June 1st seems pretty likely to me. So we'll go ahead and move on to the Giants, who have two players. One, Darren Waller. If they were to cut Darren Waller, that would free up $11.6 million. So I think we should go ahead and say goodbye to Darren Waller on the New York Giants. I know we've had some weird stuff with him. He's announced his retirement. He hasn't announced his retirement. He releases a song yesterday about his divorce. All sorts of things going on with Darren Waller. But it sounds like he is probably not going to be on the Giants next season, as saving $11 million for a player that barely did anything for you last season after bringing in Malik Neighbors is probably a good move. And so is more than likely moving on from Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton, on top of being able to free up $6 million by releasing him, he has also not been present at OTAs as he's trying to figure out the contract situation with the Giants drafting Malik Neighbors, with them having Wan'Dale Robinson, with them having Jalen Hyatt. They don't necessarily need Darius Slayton, and at the very least, they could probably use that $6 million and get a cheaper wide receiver than Darius Slayton if they really want bodies in the room. So I would expect, at least Darren Waller to be released, but potentially Darius Slayton as well. Tyler Lockett is the next one. This one's interesting because Tyler Lockett is this is supposed to be Courtland Sutton. I think I just had Tyler Lockett on the brain, where I didn't say Tyler Lockett. Forget that. I think I was looking at Tyler Lockett when I wrote this. This is about Courtland Sutton, because I also wrote in the notes, drafted Troy Franklin. So anyway, this is Courtland Sutton. Sorry, I don't know why I wrote Tyler Lockett. Just had him on the brain. You guys know I like Tyler Lockett. That was because one list had Tyler Lockett, but I think he restructured his contract in such a way to where it wouldn't free up money anymore. That was there's some lists that go back to February that I was looking at just because, the June 1st stuff doesn't really change. Anyway, Courtland Sutton, if released, would save $11.5 million and $13.5 million if traded. It's important to note this because Courtland Sutton has skipped OTAs, and they drafted Troy Franklin, and we're talking about the Marvin Mims breakout potentially here. With them being able to get that much money, I think it would make sense. I think that there's a lot of teams that would trade for a player like Courtland Sutton right now, especially since it's not as much money, only $13.5 million. They would have to incur not a long-term contract on him either, as that's the whole reason he's sitting out of the OTAs. So I could see Courtland Sutton being traded. That might hurt, Bo Nix and the Broncos only having Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims, but I'm sure they could figure something out. They have the pass-catching running backs and the tight ends, and it's just a rebuilding team in general. If they were to keep Courtland Sutton, this would be his last season probably with them anyway. So I don't mind going ahead and either releasing him to free up 12 mil or trade him and free up around 14 mil at 13.5. So that's the Courtland Sutton situation in Denver. At the New Orleans Saints, they have two players that they could free up some money with, one being Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, they would free up $8.5 million if they were to release him. There are also no guarantees next season on his contract, so they could just cut him and get out from under it. He has a $10 million base salary next season. So that's a lot of money to try to get away from, to also free up 8.5 this season. I don't think it's that bad of a deal. They have not really utilized Taysom Hill as much with the new regime, and they're bringing in the new coordinator this season who might just not really want a Taysom Hill type player. We're already hearing rumors about him being used differently through these OTAs and stuff. So to free out that money, I don't think it's that bad of a deal for them. And to also get out from under his 2025 contract, I think makes sense as well. The next player on the Saints, I think, is just unlikely. They have money right now, so it's not that big of a deal. But next season, they don't necessarily have as much money, and I think that is where it could get interesting when it comes to Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara right now, they would free up $10.6 million if they cut him, 11.6 if they traded him away. That's a decent bit of money for a running back, especially an older one, for a team that's not really competing. And especially, again, he has no guarantees on his 2025 contract, and his base salary would actually be $22 million next year, which is a ton. A ton. So I could see like them just wanting to move on from him now so they don't have to pay him $22 million next season. But I don't know. I mean, like, Alvin Kamara is just such an elite type of player that can really carry that offense that I think they might just bite the bullet and ride out Alvin Kamara one last season. But if they don't, I mean, Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams is not a bad backfield. It's not a great backfield, but it's fine enough to where, if they want to just commit to that, it could be fine. So I would, keep your eye on Alvin Kamara and maybe see if you can get some cheap shares on Kendre Miller, because I think Kendre Miller is probably going to have a role even if Alvin Kamara stays. But if he's released, we're going to be talking about a massive influx in value for that player. The next one is T. Higgins. T. Higgins, since it's a franchise tag, they can just go ahead and move on from him and free up some money. No big deal. If they cut him, they would free up $21 million. And if they traded him, it would be the same. The only reason I don't think they would do this is because they have $20 million in cap space already, the Cincinnati Bengals. So they're not really desperate for money. So I think he's probably staying on the Bengals. But I just wanted to bring it up because that is $20 million that they could free up. We are hearing, of course, the T. Higgins rumors that he might not be a Bengal forever. So that's there. I still think he's going to stay a Bengal at least this season and then maybe move on. I think this is kind of the last year of the Bengals like Super Bowl window with this squad. I'm sure there'll still be another one. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow are awesome. But I think this is like the Bengals are doing what they can to keep this squad together one last year. But then they have to extend Jamar Chase and they're not going to be able to keep T. Higgins. But they can this year. So I don't think he's going to get moved on. But if they do, they will be able to free up about $20 million, which is not bad, right? Amari Cooper. I don't know if many people want to hear this one. Amari Cooper. Listen to this. They would save $20 million, the Cleveland Browns, to release him or trade him. $20 million to move on from Amari Cooper. I know that that's the standard price for a wide receiver right now, but we're talking about a Cleveland Browns team that probably needs the money and does not really need to be committing to Amari Cooper much longer. Really, they've just brought in Jerry Jeudy. They drafted Jamari Thrash this year. They drafted Cedric Tillman last year. They brought in Elijah Moore. David Njoku's been breaking out. Nick Chubb and Jerome Ford are going to be there for the running back room. $20 million is a lot of money to free up by getting rid of an older wide receiver. So I think they'll at least be shopping him. I don't think they'll cut him unless they get really desperate. Again, there are no teams under the cap right now. I think the Cleveland Browns, let me double check. I don't think they have a ton of cap space. They have 14 million. So they're not necessarily hurting, but to, get another 20 mil is not going to, be anything to scoff at for a team like that. So that is something I would just keep an eye on because the Cleveland Browns do have a deeper wide receiver room, and $20 million is just nothing to scoff at for an older wide receiver like Amari Cooper. But he's been productive. They could probably just put the team together one last season here, similar to the T. Higgins situation in Cincinnati. Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, see what he can do one season with the full wide receiver core and then reevaluate. So I think he's probably staying on the Browns just because they're good in cap space. But, if this was a situation where they needed money, I could definitely see them moving on. But either way, definitely something to keep your eye on, because if they could trade him, they would definitely do it. I think we might hear some Amari Cooper trade rumors at least. He definitely won't be released, but $20 million to trade him, Not bad. Could probably get a little younger or something and move on from him. On the Colts, we've got Mo Alley-Cox. The only reason I bring him in is it would save $6 million to move on from Mo Alley-Cox. Not a ton of money, but the Colts do just have a ton of tight ends. We've talked about it a million times now. Jelani Woods is coming back, but last year it was like Mo Alley-Cox, Kylan Granson, Will Mallory, and someone else, Ogletree, was catching passes. So with Jelani Woods coming back, they could probably move on from one of these tight ends. Mo Alley-Cox is the one that frees up the most money, $6 million for him. And the last player is Brandon Cooks. More Ryan Flournoy propaganda, perhaps. This is unlikely, but possible, as the Cowboys could save $8 million by moving on from him. They're probably fine, but they are one of the teams with the lowest amount of cap space right now. They only have about $3 million in cap space. So to free up that other 8 would put them over $10 million in cap space, which is a decent bit of fun money. With Brandon Cooks not doing too much last season, I mean, this is possible, but he did kind of come on strong towards the end of the year and start cooking. And their wide receiver room is just so abysmal that they're probably just going to bite the bullet and go with Brandon Cooks for at least one more season. But still, freeing up $8 million, not much to scoff at, especially when you don't have a ton of cap space right now. So at least something to keep our eye on, even if it is unlikely. So that was everything I was able to collect. As well as looking through lists. And I literally went team by team on over the cap to check this out. So I really think this is a pretty solid list, at least for the fantasy relevant players. Again, one last time, the players to keep your eyes on this weekend: Miles Sanders, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Darius Slayton, Courtland Sutton, Alvin Kamara, Taysom Hill, T. Higgins, Amari Cooper, Mo Alley-Cox, Brandon Cooks, and Darren Waller. All can free up a decent bit of money and make sense for their team to move on from this season. All right, everyone. Do you guys have any questions? Let me go ahead and pop into the chat. Saints getting away with keeping Kamara would be the definition of people having too much money. This is so true. The Saints just always get away with this. Max said that they can move Deebo because they saw his limitations in the playoffs when he couldn't beat man coverage. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong. If I remember correctly, because I know it wasn't like a reported injury or anything like an actual injury given he played, but I want to say Deebo Samuel was banged up towards the end of the season. If I remember correctly, I remember him like having some huge spike weeks towards the end of the year, and then I think he got hurt and never really capitalized on those again. And I'm pretty sure those injuries lingered into the postseason. I'm trying to load Player Profiler right now, but it's taking a second. Here we go. If I remember correctly, he picked up an injury at the end of the year. Yeah, he bruised his shoulder in the postseason. And his shoulder's pretty important. This is true. He is always kind of banged up. But yeah, I mean, his point totals from the end of the season, he clearly was not 100%. Because listen to this. Week 12, 22 points, 36 points, 34 points, 22 points, 10 points, 19 points. Then he bruised his shoulder, 5 points, 4 points, 18 points, 7 points. So I would just say, I don't want to use the Super Bowl to say that Deebo Samuel is washed against man coverage. He's historically been pretty good against man coverage. And even was pretty good against them last year, 12th in routes versus man, although his win rate versus man was not good. Actually, he was 114th, so maybe he hasn't been that good against man. But number one, juke rate and breaking tons of tackles. So yeah, either way, that is the whole – I think he was fine. I think it was just a little banged up for that Super Bowl. And he's not a man receiver, right? Box says, please stop mentioning Ryan Flournoy. I just can't. I just can't. I'm just so excited for that player. I really, really am. If these players on franchise tags walked, what comp pick would the team get? I actually don't know. I don't know this off the top of my head. I don't think they get anything if they don't re-sign him. I think that's more of a transition tag thing. Yeah, I think that's just more if they go to a different team next year. I don't think they get compensatory picks. Let's see. Yeah, that's just if they use a non-exclusive tag, and then if they use a non-exclusive or transition tag and someone takes a player, then I think they get a comp pick, but I don't think if they just walk and move on that they get anything next season. The Titans wide receiver room is filled up. Do I think Treylon Burks could be the odd man out? Yes and no. He's the wide receiver 4, so I think we need to be careful here. Wide receiver 4 is not necessarily odd man out. It's just there, right? And this is going to be an offense that passes the ball a ton. I really do expect that. So I think even as a wide receiver 4, he's going to get some volume and has some importance to the team, especially given it's an older and injury-prone wide receiver core. They need a wide receiver 4. So I think Treylon Burks stays on the Titans. And I do think that he learns a lot this season and could be fine, at least fine. I don't think he ever gets that ceiling, but he could be like a consistent wide receiver 4 or something. So anyway, that should do it. Kieran, I also don't really understand all this stuff. I try my best. I think I get it. I think I get it. But yeah, when it comes to the comp picks and all the extra stuff, it's the NFL, and the salary cap stuff is so convoluted. It's ridiculous. They could make it so much easier than they have, but that's just the financial system anywhere we look around this country. Am I right, fellas? But anyway, that should do it today. Shout out Sarico Tico on Instagram. They say that this should have 20,000 views. So let's go ahead and get me to 20,000 views. That'd be awesome. Thank you, Instagram viewer. But yeah, that should do it, everyone. You all have a fantastic Friday, a wonderful weekend, and we'll be back here Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern on the Player Profiler, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and have a good one. Peace.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.